here with us. Before we start, I just wanted to make sure that you are comfortable and that our conversations feel clear. This is meant to be a very gentle conversation and there's no pressure to answer anything perfectly. You're very welcome to pause, ask me to repeat any questions, or even take a moment to think or pass on any question if you feel that you need to. And, you know, it's all about celebrating the neurodiverse community at Neuro Awesome and celebrating you, because from what I understand, you're a bit of a way shower in terms of finding your own way, and you're really an inspiration to a lot of people who already exist in our community. And I just really wanted to take the opportunity to find out more about you and share with our community what your journey has been like. So if that's okay with you, I would love to dive in.
Definitely. Ask away.
Alrighty, so hi everyone and welcome. I'm so glad that you're here with us today. This is a Neuro Awesome conversation with James Rapp from the Assembly. And today we're going to have a really relaxed conversation about identity, autism, journalism, confidence, community, and all of the things that it can mean to find spaces where you are understood and supported. So at Neuro Awesome, we care so deeply about creating low pressure, neuro-affirming community spaces and for people to come as they are. And so today with James, we're going to talk about his human experience as a person who's been diagnosed, had the ups, the downs, and now found himself in the most incredible gig where he feels like he's doing what he was meant to be doing all along. So over to you, James. How are you feeling about being here today with us on Neuro Awesome?
It is so incredible to be here on Neuro Awesome to talk about my journey so far with both autism and the incredible experience of doing 2 seasons now of the Assembly. And yeah, I think what Neuro Awesome does is so fantastic for people who are neurodivergent in this area. I wish there were spaces like this when I was growing up and navigating the early part of my diagnosis. So yeah, I'm super thrilled to be here.
Thank you so much, James. Really appreciate those kind words. So for people who have not met you before, how would you describe yourself?
I would I describe myself a lot of ways. I I I think the most important thing to know about me is that I love understanding. I love making sense of the world around me. I've always been a very curious person ever since I was little. I've wanted to learn all about the world, and I think that's partly what drew me to doing journalism, and also to the new unknown experience of what potentially being on a show like The Assembly would be like. I'm always seeking to understand and learn new things, both about myself and about the rest of the world.
That's amazing. And what would you say some of the things that matter most to you would be?
I think a lot of things that matter to me most is the underlying concept, I think, of stewardship. That's something that has become very important to me. The idea that you know we on this earth are only temporary, and so we have the obligation to make the best for the world around us, and to hand over to the next generation an improvement. And so I firmly believe that we've got to do everything in our power to improve where we can, but also, preserve the wonderful things about our planet and our society as it exists. And yeah, I think I'm also motivated by fairness uh, and community and a desire just to improve and make the world just that tiny bit better.
I love that so much. I resonate with that 100%. I just, yeah, I think, a lot of people have had a really hard time for a long time, and I'm in your boat. Whatever we can do to make it easier for, our existing generations and the ones to come, I feel is just so important. So that's amazing that we're aligned like that. Now I wanted to ask you, how was it that you were first drawn in to journalism?
Well, my official journey with journalism started with the assembly. Like, I'd done no form of journalistic experience or journalistic training until the point that I got on the show. But I think I've been drawn to journalism for far longer than that. I always remember watching the news and listening to the radio, and then reading the news. And I think I've always been drawn to, coming back to that idea of learning more about the world, learning people's stories, and then, reporting that to the other people. But I've always been drawn to the authority of journalism, and of journalistic institutions as people there, doing a service for others by, telling stories and also giving important information.
Yeah, that's so true. And it does take a very certain set of skills.
Mm.
So how have you seen that, really drawing out skills inside yourself that perhaps you were lying dormant up until this adventure?
I think, yeah, well, the experience certainly brought out a confidence in myself, that I didn't know I had. Um, because going in, I thought, oh my God, I'm going to have to, on national television, interview some of the most famous people in the country. And I was like, oh, I don't, I don't know how to ask good questions, or, you know, I, I don't want to look like I'm embarrassing myself, but I just took the view that everything's a skill that you learn. Like, nobody starts with a complete skill set.
That's true.
And so, what I realized is that I can come up with questions, I can ask questions, and I can have the feeling in my mind that, okay, I'm here for a reason. I can do this. This isn't intimidating, um, you know, and I'm not doing anything wrong by asking what I want to ask.
That's a really good way of putting it. So was there a moment where you sort of realized, hey, I'm really good at this. This is something that I really want to dive into?
There, there was. I mean, I think the first when we did the second series of the show, because we were all a new cast, we did autism friendly training at Macquarie University. And so, in the first couple of the theory lectures that we had, I began to think in my mind, this is resonating much more strongly with me than anything I've tried since school. And I've chopped and changed, university courses a bunch of times and tried to find something that ultimately works. But I think the real kicker came when we were taken into a radio studio for the first time, and beforehand we were asked to prepare something we might want to say in front of the microphone, and so I I prepared this piece that was in the style of a 1970s BBC newsreader, and I step in front of the microphone and I deliver that piece confidently, naturally, and everyone loved it. And in just that moment, I thought, like, okay, the planets are aligned right now, and this is something I want to keep exploring.
That's so amazing. It brings a tear to my eye. That's just so, like, I feel like that's everybody's dream, right? To have that moment where you just go,
Yeah,
this is where I'm
just
supposed to be.
things really started making sense from that point onwards. And just throughout the show, I just felt like, okay, I feel like I'm good at this. I like there wasn't really many moments where there was that doubt or the sense of, oh, what am I
Yeah,
doing here? Um, I just always felt like, okay, I'm learning new things, and when I put them into practice, they generally seem to work.
that's so incredible. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I really like hearing about the beginnings, because, sometimes people only see the finished version,
Yeah.
the interview, the confidence, the public moment, but they don't always get to see the steps that it took in the
No,
background to get
it
there.
it was a journey to get to that point, and because it's interesting with the way they structure it on the show, because the order you see it on television was not the order we did it
Right,
in when we were actually recording it. So in both the second and third seasons, the interview you see first is the interview that we recorded fifth out of six.
right, okay,
Um, and so I think it is certainly, I mean, you can see the differences from episode to episode, but I think it's harder to see that linear journey of our confidence growing and improving, and the change in perhaps the questions we ask when you see it put together as a nice package for television, which credit to the ABC, I think they did a really good job of.
yeah.
But yeah, there is certainly a little bit more to it, particularly when it comes to the journey that we went on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd like to understand a little bit more about that sort of self understanding, autism, and identity, um, only in whichever way, feels comfortable
Hmm.
for you. But I know that that's a big part of it, to put yourself out there and have people looking at you, and that fear of, I might make a fool of myself or what have you. How did that look for you? How did that evolve and eventuate?
It's been it's been a long journey with autism, but I think the best way of describing it is it's been a long time in coming, but a lot happened very quickly. So I was diagnosed with autism when I was 5 years old. So that's 21 years ago now. And for most of that period of time, um, autism is like Macbeth. It's the word you don't mention.
Right.
And because you know, thought I was very uncomfortable with the idea of having a label, with the
Mm,
idea of feeling other, that, like, hang on, there's people my age and they're doing things, and I want to be like them, and then okay, there's things that I perhaps can't do as well or can't understand like them because of the, the autism label. And so it took me a very long time to um, to think to come to the view that myself and my autism were one and the same, and that my autism is part of what makes me me. So I it was the real turning point was when I saw season 1 of the show uh,
Yeah.
in 2024, and Mum said, "Look, do me a favor and watch this show called The Assembly." And in the back of my mind, I was thinking, isn't that the new autism show? I don't know how I feel coming face to face with my diagnosis like that. And Mum said, "Well, just watch it because this one's different." And in watching it, I was able to see, firstly, the full spectrum of autism on display, and I think no show proves quite as much as the Assembly does. I think that autism is a spectrum, and I
Very much
think
so.
one of the things that, although it is getting better, that popular culture and the understanding in particular, I think seems to have forgotten that, like that there is no one autistic mold, and so that was the first thing that clicked with me, is seeing autism as a spectrum. Um, and then secondly, just the idea that, you know, here are these people and they are just embracing their autism and are just getting on and doing amazing things. And that kind of made me feel like, hang on, I've spent the whole time over the last nearly 20 years thinking of autism as this boogeyman, something to
Yeah.
hide.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, here are people going out and being on television and interviewing celebrities and just being themselves and seemingly having the best time
Yeah.
doing that. So it made something click in my mind that, hang on, there has never been anything wrong with me or anything that I should hide. It is just that we have a world that has been designed around people who aren't neurodiverse. And
Yep.
um, so I thought in my mind that I need to say, okay, look, I'm whole. I've got gifts. There's differences there with others, but if I find a zone um, where I can thrive, then the sky's the limit. And now, little did I know at that point that it turned out that that it would be the Assembly.
Yeah.
When I watched it reluctantly for the first time, that it would that less than a year later it would become such a part of me and a part of my journey. But I really, it's really taken to getting to this point in my journey that I've started to feel, okay, the person I am is worth something, and I just have to find the places where I can succeed.
That's so amazing, James. Well done. You know, it takes a lot of courage to accept the things about yourself that you feel you shouldn't be proud of, and to keep showing up and to keep trying new things. And, you know, like I am just so in awe of this, because you're absolutely right. There's nothing to be ashamed of.
No,
And it's so sad that people think that, you know, that there's something bad about being autistic, or that there's
yeah,
something wrong, or there's something, you know, shameful. It's really, you know.
and I think to give society some credit, I think we are getting much better in how we are approaching neurodiversity now than we were in 2005. I
Absolutely.
think, and look, you know, shout out to my parents.
Yeah.
They did an they have been amazing supports of me throughout, my entire life. But, when they were really taking a stab in the dark when they started and started trying to help me to make sense of my diagnosis, because there was so little out there. There was so little understanding at the time.
Yeah.
And so I think if I were being diagnosed now, I think the journey would probably be easier.
Yeah.
But whereas, you know, back then it was trial and error. But
Yeah.
I've learned a lot about myself in the process. And
Yeah.
I think now that I am where I am, you know, think things can only get better on that front.
Absolutely. And so when you think about your journey from diagnosis or early self-understanding to where you are now, what has changed the way that you see yourself?
I think the biggest thing that's changed the way I see myself is two things. Firstly, I've always found that when something goes well for me, that only boosts my self-confidence and my perception of what I can do and what I can achieve.
Yeah.
Um, and so, and then I guess the second thing is, something I touched on a little earlier, is just the realization that, as I get older, as I become more in tune of myself, the more I understand about the world,
Mm.
is that you get the sense that, hang on, there's never been anything wrong with me to begin with.
Yeah.
We have just built a world that is geared to how others function.
Yeah.
And so that has really helped with putting into perspective um, how I feel about being neurodiverse.
Yeah. That's great. And so were there parts of you that now make more sense given the fresh experiences that you've had, the learnings, the journey?
I um, I mean, I guess that's still a question I'm trying to answer and coming more to grips with. The more I learn, the more I put myself out there, the more I experience. Um, I think you know the my my attention to detail and wanting to perfect certain things, I think was something which often I felt got in the way of my confidence,
Yeah.
because I think, oh well, I'm thinking too much about this, which would make me more, less likely to do things and potentially say yes to opportunities. But you know, through the assembly, I was like, okay, well, I can use this to my advantage because I can think about the questions. I can learn, what there is to know about the subject we're interviewing. I can, use my attention to detail to pick up um, on something someone has said in their answers and maybe make a comment relating to that afterwards. Um, and I guess, kind of what another really big thing I learned, and is something that clicked quite early on in the process, really in the first few days that we were doing our training, is that I can just be myself and people will respond well to that.
Yeah.
Because um, I've always had the thought that, because I'm different, people might not understand or appreciate that. But when put in a group of other like-minded people, I can have a half-hour conversation with someone about transport history, and we don't really bat an eye. We, accept and embrace, what everyone has, and that was hugely liberating to feel like, okay, well, if someone's, you know, likes to express themselves by singing like a chipmunk, then that means there's nothing wrong with me, doing a voice impression or saying, what I know about the different flags or countries or, whatever it is that is me being my authentic self. So yeah, I used to hide myself, but now I feel no, there is no need to, because people might respond better than I think.
Yeah, that's so incredible. And I totally hear you. I see it in the groups that we do at Neuro Awesome. People who have spent so much time masking, and then
Mm,
when they know that they're safe and they can actually just be themselves, and
yeah,
you can just see the weight coming off them, and it's just such a beautiful thing to experience. Um, that that sense of freeing themselves up to just be, and just, yeah, that's so amazing. So now that you're really learning about yourself, you're understanding yourself differently, and the environments that you're going into are safe environments that are really encouraging you to continue to be your authentic self, which is just incredible. So what else has helped you to feel more comfortable being yourself in public, whether you're at uni studying or whether you're at workspaces?
I think what's well, touching on what I was talking about earlier, just the feeling like the the person who I am is not someone who I have to hide, because the person I am is someone who people can like and appreciate what I can do. That's been a big booster to think that, hang on, you know, why am I hiding what's here,
Yeah,
when when I've shown who I am, that's only led to good experiences.
yeah,
So that's been a big thing, and also just, I think every good experience builds up and just
yeah,
makes me feel that little bit more capable.
yeah,
And so when I do something well, I feel like, okay, well, what can I do on the back of this? Um,
yeah, nice. Yeah,
yeah,
like going to gym, really, like you're just building that social
exactly.
muscle. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's exactly like that.
Amazing. And so do you have like particular people or routines that you kind of still do, or that help you to sort of navigate these different situations and environments now that you're really working that muscle, pushing yourself further to open up to new experiences and to new people, places, and things? What are some of those sort of routines that, if you have any, that exist in your life to help you be be the best version of the real you?
Well, I think the biggest routine that I've developed as late, that I've neglected in the past, I think down to a lack of confidence, is fitness.
Yeah,
Um, I go to the gym now twice a week and have been doing so for a couple of years now, and just the sense of accomplishment and just feeling healthy and clear-headed from
yeah,
that, and the sense that I'm always, even if it's bit by bit, improving at something,
yeah,
that's given such a mental boost to me.
yeah,
It's also incredibly helped because um, we've never gotten to the bottom of whether this is actually linked with autism or not. But I have always had trouble with fine and gross motor skills.
Okay,
And
yeah.
that's been one of the most frustrating things about coming to grips with my diagnosis, is that, doing things that seem so easy that other people do without thought,
Yeah.
almost feel like a bit of a struggle. But since since getting more physically fit, I found that my motor skills are far better than they used to be, and
Yeah.
that in turn helps with confidence and feeling like, okay, I can feel capable to do more things. So
Yeah.
yeah, fitness has been a really important part of routine. I've also recently got a life coach, and
Nice. Well
uh,
done.
she has been very helpful in working out um, strengths, and working out just the way my mind works, and just adapting to that and building schedules and working out what tasks need to be done, and just structuring
Yeah.
life so that I can make the most of it.
That's amazing. Well done. And I will take this moment to pay massive gratitude to your parents for pushing you along this journey as well, because I
Oh yeah,
think
they
that's
have
a huge
they
part
have
of it.
supported me
Yeah.
at every turn, and they have just made things. They've made a lot of things possible.
Yeah. And I think starting with that acceptance,
Mm,
I know that when we look at previous generations who didn't understand
yeah,
autism or mental health or any of these things, um, like we did a screening of Temple Grandin a couple of months ago, and you see in that movie where the doctor tells the parents, put her in an institution. It's too
and
hard. There's something wrong with her.
and
Hide
that
it.
was indeed one of uh, what the early pediatricians that we saw said to my parents, and
Mm,
that. I imagine that must have been very confronting for them to hear, but I just feel so thankful that they said, "No, we're not going to listen
yeah.
to that person. You know, we love our son, we believe him, and we know that he can go somewhere."
Yeah, yeah. They were the first people to advocate for your worth and
They were.
worthiness and capability. And, I just like, they're amazing. And I wanted to
Mm.
just acknowledge that because,
Oh,
that's
they absolutely
the
are.
beginning of the journey and, backing you all the way. And that's just so important to have people in your corner who are
Mm.
there supporting you. Through the good, through the bad, ugly, and all that kind of stuff. And, and it shows, right? Because you're doing amazing things now. So now I want to sort of switch gears a little bit
Hmm.
because we know obviously it's really important to talk about that, people who are autistic have to work extra hard in
Oh, for
other
sure.
ways so that people don't notice that they're different, and or they work really really hard in being able to just keep up with all of the sensory things that a neurotypical wouldn't be, I suppose, as sensitive to, whether that be sight, sound, smell, um, activities, fast movement, whatever it is. So has there been do you have extra sort of elements like that have also been under the radar that you've had to work really hard to, balance and, I suppose, mask up until this point in time? How has that masking thing been for you in terms of showing up and getting to where you are now, where you are just James, take it or leave it, this is me?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's been a long process, and absolutely that you know, what you said resonates a lot with what my experience has been so far in terms of having to work extra hard um, to to get by and do what you know, to get to a place where neurotypical people often get. I think I've always tried to present as neurotypical as I can.
Yeah.
Um, and look, a lot of that has been and still is conscious effort. Not so much of masking, although I certainly have masked and still mask. But in
Mm.
terms of thinking, okay, I'm in this situation, this is what's expected of me here, and so to have the best chance of succeeding, I'm not going to hide myself, but adapt and read the situation.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's certainly been, you know, there's certainly been times where I felt, okay, I feel exhausted, and
Yeah.
I can't put a finger on why. But the more I think about it, I'm like, okay, that's what burnout feels like,
Mm.
because I'm constantly be feeling like I have to be more vigilant uh,
Yeah.
than others. But look, I've I've adapted, and yes, it's taken more work, but I've managed so far to get to a place where I feel like, all right, I'm satisfied with the journey that I'm on, and I'm, you know, I set goals for myself, and I, you know, might take a little bit of extra effort. That was certainly the case with, well, with getting my license,
Yeah.
and also um, being able to successfully do the HSC. Um,
Nice. Yeah.
you know, it's taken often a lot more structure, uh, but it's taken, you know, thinking of these things differently. But um, with work comes progress.
Yeah, that's amazing. So just oh, would he like to come up as to be a part of the interview? I did hear him or her just really make
Yes,
a good song
I
and
think he wants to get outside, so I'll just quickly
Okay, no, you're right.
let him out.
That's so funny. Um,
Sorry about that.
oh no, don't be silly. We love cats. We meet Neuro Awesome have a team meeting every fortnight, and one of my committee members and I taken in turns of going to each other's house, and so her cat, what's his name? I feel like it's Paco. It's not Paco. It's Pablo. Pablo. Which is the most Mexican name for an Irish English couple. It's just hilarious. Pablo's like 16, and he actually got to FaceTime in our meeting one time because he
All
just wanted
right.
to be all up in it. So that was hilarious. So going back to, I suppose, the challenges and some of those invisible challenges that, sorry, it's my door slamming, that autistic young people might be carrying that other people don't always see. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that looks like from the inside?
Oh, yeah. Well, there's certainly, yeah, there is a lot that most people um, don't see. I mean, look, I think I can't, because you know the 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 neurodiverse community is really so diverse. I certainly
Yeah,
can't speak to every
sure.
autistic or neurodiverse person's experience, but from my own experience and the experience of autistic friends that I have, I think we often think a lot more about logistics
Yeah,
than other people, thinking, okay, right, well, I've got an appointment here at this time. So, okay, working backwards from that, right, I have to do this then, and then I have to get that train, and I need to make sure I'm there so that the walk isn't too long, and I have to think about um, what to do on the way. And so there's, I think, not just logistically, but I think something a lot of us do a lot of, certainly I do, is we overanalyze everything. Everything we do, it's not so much second guessing, although there is definitely a bit of that, but thinking, okay, just thinking about everything in detail
Yeah.
that most people don't think twice about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because because we're not just navigating um, the world, we're navigating ourselves
Yeah.
in the world that others have created.
Yeah.
And so we are trying to play by the rules of others,
Yeah.
adhere to standards,
Yeah.
whilst also thinking, okay, how do I counteract or mitigate or adapt what's already going on in my head?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So a lot of analysis paralysis.
A lot of, yes, exactly, analysis paralysis.
Oh dear. No wonder, no wonder, your social battery runs out so fast. If that's what you're doing every minute of every day is doing
Yes.
that analytics. I can only imagine. So we've talked a little bit about sort of routine. So is there a particular thing if you're having a rough day or a moment where, let's say things have gone awry, you've done your best planning, how do you get through that moment when things don't go to plan?
Well, it can be very difficult at times and very mentally draining.
Mm,
I think if it's a moment where things aren't going to plan and I'm in the moment and I've got to, um, you know, if things are still in motion and I've got to try and get things back on track, that can be a little bit more intense, but it
yeah,
always, I think, involves thinking, okay, let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture. Right, this is what's happened. This is what needs to happen. Okay, how do I go from A to B in my mind, and just working out logically those steps along the way. I think in general, if I'm not trying to figure out a way forward immediately, then often I think the way I get myself out of a difficult spot is just thinking about what resonates and thinking
mm,
about headspaces where I
yeah,
can be at my best, where I can be perhaps more reflective, perhaps not caught up in the emotion and frenzy of things. So I absolutely love nature,
yeah,
and I find that when I'm out walking in nature, when I'm just when just things have an opportunity of being still and I can observe, the beauty of the natural world in all of the forms that it comes in, that I'm able just to have a bit of perspective and a bit of calm to just think, okay, my mind is busy right now. I
yeah,
can just take the world in.
yeah, yeah. So really getting into that mindfulness in your own way.
Yeah, exactly. It's hugely important. Like I've tried, lots of mindfulness techniques and things that people have accepted over the years, and just put out saying, oh well, if you're having stress, do this, and if or just download this app, it'll make things better. But
Yeah.
I think really my peak mindfulness is just thinking, okay, enough of what people are saying, just get into a space where I genuinely feel mindful.
Yeah.
And that almost always involves either nature or just immersing myself in some kind of body of water and just feeling that
Yeah.
sensation.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that, and I think a lot of people listening will connect with that idea, because essentially, obviously, showing up is a big thing, even when other people don't realize how much it's taking from you to hold it all together and
Mm.
keep going. And,
Just excuse me for a moment. I just need to plug my laptop in. I just
oh,
realized
sure.
I've chewed through quite a little bit of battery. So just
Oh, yeah, no problem.
all right.
Good to go?
Yep, good to go.
All righty. So yeah, I was just saying that, um, confidence doesn't always come from being completely comfortable. And sometimes it's about having the support, having preparation, strategies, and structure, and also just knowing that you can do things in your own way. So now I'd love to just turn a little bit to focusing on the journalism,
Yeah.
and talk about what has interviewing people taught you about listening.
Uh, I think it's taught me quite a lot about listening. Um, I've always found that I'm more of a listener than a talker. Like in social situations, I generally um, observe as much as possible and listen, because I feel like the more I listen, the more I can pick up on cues and pick up on what other people are doing. And so I think what journalism has taught me about listening is that, again, not really the interviews themselves, but certainly in terms of the preparation for those interviews. I think, when you listen to feedback, certainly on on questions, well, that only helps with better questions. When you
Yeah,
take on board what other people say about what you've done, and also um, listening to those people's stories, learning um, about them, remembering, that can, when you, I think, ask a question that resonates with the interviewee, um, I think that tends to produce a better answer than if you just think of just a question you could ask anybody.
yeah, something
And
really
that
cold.
comes through, well, certainly listening to things they've said in the past, but also just working at trying to observe them to work out them as a person.
Yeah, yeah. And I suppose to get that cue as to how you can ask another question to just
Yeah,
get that little bit deeper.
yeah.
So how has that changed the way that you understand people?
I think the way I think I believe that people are more varied than perhaps I uh, I thought in the past. I think certainly it's proven that, you know someone is more than your preconceived notions of who they are. Like, I'll give you an example. Um, I we in season 2, one of our interviews that we filmed was with the cricketer Steve Waugh,
Oh,
and
okay.
I didn't have really any conception of who he was.
Right.
Um, as someone who hadn't really followed sport myself,
Yeah.
and I kind of had the expectation, well, is you know, here's a sports star who doesn't really like being in the public eye. I don't know. I'm a bit worried about how this is going to go as an interview. But it turned out, both through the questions we asked and seeing more of, the way he answered them, was that, you know, I I never knew how philosophical he could be, or just how profound, or in the kind of detail he could describe the experiences that he had and the lessons he learned from them. And that was a really interesting case, because it's the only person I've ever interviewed that I had no preconception of who he was,
Right. Yeah.
and where he was, because I thought, oh well, I don't know what this is going to be like. I'll just go in with this completely open mind. To the other extreme was when you certainly do have preconceived notions of someone, and then by listening to them, by seeing their experience, um, that again they proved to be something quite different. Was also in season 2, we interviewed um, comedian and television host Julia Morris, and
Yeah.
she's, well, quite the opposite of Steve Waugh, in that she's a personality, a very big personality, and I suppose I had um, a view in my mind of what I thought of her based on what I'd seen on television and
Yeah.
what interviewing her might be like. But then it turned out to be so much more varied, and then what the persona is. So
Yeah.
the yeah, the biggest thing about interviewing people, and the a big lesson about interviewing and also listening, is just thinking that people are complex. They're they're often never as you expect them to be, and just to be open to and connect with who people actually are.
Yeah, that's so true. I really loved when you were interviewing Husey,
Oh yes,
and watching that episode where, what's the name of the lady who coaches you?
uh, Lee Sales.
Lee Sales. Lee
Yeah,
Sales. When Lee Sales was saying, it's going to be interesting to see where the real Husey comes out and
yeah.
what the show. And I had to watch really closely to see, because he is such a character. So
He is, and he was one of those guests that, with like, no one was neutral about Husey,
yeah,
when we and no one was like, don't really know much about him,
right. He's
when
everywhere. It's
he
like where's
was
Molly?
announced as our guest. Like, everyone had something to say about what they thought they knew
Yeah,
about him, or kind of what sort of angle they could go in their questioning.
yeah. Do you feel like you got to see who the real Husey is?
He was an interesting case. I certainly got to see aspects of the real Husey, and certainly parts that he doesn't so much emphasize in his media career. But I think
Yeah,
he's one of those cases where he has been in the public eye so long, he has created a persona for so long,
yeah,
that the two kind of intersect, they blend.
yeah, yeah,
And yes, I guess, yes, we saw aspects of the Husey that we don't see normally,
yeah,
but we still saw plenty
Yeah.
of of the guy on TV and radio.
Yeah, definitely. And would you say, being autistic, that you have almost like a little bit of a superpower in terms of noticing more or different things than a typical person?
I mean, look, I I wouldn't I don't know whether I would call it a superpower or not. But yeah, I certainly think that autistic people do notice different things. I mean, in a sense, that is part of the appeal and the premise of the show, uh, of the assembly, is that, in general, we aren't we ask the questions that typically don't get asked. But yeah, I think it's inevitable that if a person's brain works differently, or people have had different experiences, they are going to perceive things differently. They might recognize what other people don't.
Yeah.
Um, like I, and even within that that spectrum, there are things that some autistic people notice that other autistic people don't. So it's yeah, I would say um, innate in difference is the ability to perceive things differently.
Yeah, totally. That's so true. I mean, as you say, because it is such a varied spectrum, it really just is different from person to person. I have one of my really closest friends who is autistic and ADHD and some other things as well. But I just noticed when I'm out with her, like she just notices all these other things that are going on. Like we were walking at Lake Alexandra and she's like, oh, someone's dumped that duck. Look, it's not a natural duck. I'm like, what? Like, how do you know about ducks?
Yeah, I know. Like it's like I I'm often in that situation when I'm around, you know, other people and people who haven't had the perspectives that I have, and I point something out, and they think,
Yeah,
"Oh, never would have thought that, or didn't know
yeah,
that at all," or "How can you tell that?" Like,
yeah. Crazy, huh? So, because
mm,
at Neuro Awesome, we like to think of neurodivergence being a superpower because it gives people these strengths and abilities that a neurotypical person doesn't have or would find
hmm,
challenging to be able to
yeah,
achieve. And when I was having a sneaky chat to your mum before the interview, she was telling me about you knowing all the flags and all of the was it the brands of cars and stuff like that when
oh
you
yeah.
were like 2 or something? And I was
When
like,
I
oh
was
my
when I
God,
was
that's
two,
incredible.
yes, I could identify brands of cars, and
Cars
also
and engines.
yes, outboard engines on
Yeah,
boats when I was like very young and could barely speak, and yet I could go Yamaha, Evinrude, Mercury.
that's wild. I just love
Yeah.
that so much. So I realize we've been chatting for nearly an hour, and I don't want to overwhelm you because I could just sit here and ask you questions all day. So I'll try and sort of wrap up soon, but I would love to know. Let me see. I'll pick one of my favorite questions here. Um, what's one of the things that really stands out to you in terms of your experience with the assembly?
I think the thing that stands out to me is firstly how amazing it is when we don't try to put neurodivergent or autistic people in a box. When
Mm-hmm.
we create, when a space is created where we can just be exactly who we are and run with it.
Yeah.
And I think you know, I think the assembly is not going to change the world overnight,
No.
but the fact that it exists and the fact that it's been, well, in Australia 3 seasons now, and now with 21 different versions across the world,
Yeah.
I think that's a really good sign
Yeah.
that there is the potential there that, you know, we could do things very differently
Yeah.
and in a new and innovative way. And that's what, yeah, what stands out to me it is the possibility that people in high places are working to make autism visible as it is and
Yeah.
not a perception of it. And, you
Yeah.
know, the potential that things can be very different in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just really love that, it's not only is it something that is celebrating that neurodiversity, creating those opportunities for people to be themselves um, and expand on where they're at in their life, what they're comfortable doing. I just feel like, as you said, it's just such a really important awareness piece, and it's not going to change stuff overnight, but it is giving people an opportunity to peer into what it really means to be, I suppose,
Yeah.
neurodivergent, but also to own it,
Yeah, exactly.
and allow that to be a part of what you show the world. I just really, I'm really, I'm really enthused by the fact that, yeah, the producers have gone ahead, they've made these incredible series, and that they've given people like yourselves like a new lease on life, pretty much, because it's
Oh,
allowed
for
you to
sure.
be with your own people and find yourself and your confidence and that worthiness that's always been
Hmm.
there. So incredible. So what is next on the horizon for you now, James? Because you're like a little bit of a celebrity.
Well, what's next on the horizon is really I've definitely decided that through doing the experience, that media is the space that I want to be in.
Yeah,
So I I was already studying at Macquarie University before the assembly, but I've uh, since changed my degree to media and communications with a journalism major. Um,
amazing.
and I've just wrapped up semester one of that course literally yesterday.
Nice. Well done.
So feeling really positive about that um, direction. Uh, I'm also quite excitingly, um, I have started the process of volunteering with Highland FM in Bowral,
Oh, very
and
exciting.
I'm in the process of learning the ropes of
Yeah,
sitting in with different presenters and like seeing how community radio is put together. But eventually, hopefully, I'll get to the point where they think I'm ready to be on the air myself with my own little show. So,
that's
that's,
nice.
fingers crossed, that's a positive development for the future.
That's amazing. Well done. They must have liked you to, bring you in and, say to train you up and all of that. That's super, super exciting.
Yeah,
I did
so
see,
that yeah, so that that's been a lot of fun so
yeah,
far, and I think it's always daunting learning a new skill, but
yeah,
it's incredibly rewarding as well because confidence just grows.
yeah, absolutely. And so, as we sort of near to the close, for young autistic people and their families that are listening in, um, who might be struggling and, wondering, how do I get to the next stage of finding who I am? What would one piece of advice be that you would have for them?
My one piece of advice would be never underestimate yourself.
Yeah.
Just like uh, you are more than the stereotypes suggest. You're more than what other people say. Um, and just put yourself out there and say yes to opportunities when they present themselves, even if they may be daunting. Like I, when I was told about the assembly, I knew in my heart that it was something I wanted to do, but there was
Yeah.
so much uncertainty about it. I didn't know what I was getting myself in for.
Yeah.
But I thought, okay, this is uncertain, but it could be really good.
Yeah.
So I think it takes a lot of courage
Yeah.
to take the first step somewhere,
Yeah.
but often that first step is the hardest one.
Yes.
Um, and so, yeah, my advice to neurodivergent people everywhere is, don't underestimate yourself and have a go. Now that can take a lot of psyching yourself up. It can take a lot of journey and self-work, and there's a it's never easy to get into that point, but once you start, I think, getting to the point where you think, okay, I feel like I can do this, even if it's something small.
Yeah.
It just success builds on success.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so true. James, it has just been so lovely to talk to you and hear about your journey and just feel the rawness, I guess, of what it's been like for you. You shared so much, about the courage, the preparation, listening, being understood, and even finding those spaces where, you don't have to be anything other than
Mm.
yourself, and learning to own your autism. And that's so important for people who are out there, who are listening, who are supporting someone, who, are in a relationship with someone, or who have a child potentially who is on the spectrum, and the journey that they have ahead of them. So, I think one of the biggest things I'm taking from this conversation is just that the support doesn't have to be loud, doesn't have to be
No.
complicated. Sometimes it's just about giving people time, taking them seriously, and reducing that pressure, believing that they have something more to offer, and then just sort of sitting back and holding that space for them to evolve and to blossom into the person that they're meant to be.
Yeah, and look, I think, you know, we talk about support, and we talk about the what's available to people, what helps people. I think at its most basic level, what support has looked like to me over the years is just is being seen and being believed,
Yeah.
and people, they're having that faith in me that I can do it,
Yeah.
and wanting me to go further.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so true. So look, at Neuro Awesome, this is essentially our goal and our priority, that we are creating those safe spaces where people can come as they are, they can be accepted, they can be honored and celebrated, and we can help them to build that trust muscle with being themselves and with building those connections in the community. And so your story has been so important to be able to share with the community. And, I think given that you've found your place now in journalism, there could be a little, employment offer from Neuro Awesome to be the future interviewer for some of our other Neuro Awesome people that we'd like to bring into the community. Might be worth a conversation at some point in time if you'd be interested. You're all lovely radio.
I'm open. I'm open to possibilities. I think this time is very fluid. It's one where I'm working out, just what where I want to be, what spaces I want to be in. So I'm at a point where everything's a possibility.
That's amazing. Well, I can't wait to hear when your radio station. So, is it going to be live? Is it going to be recorded? Will you have?
It'll be live.
Yeah.
It'll be live, and it'll be weekly at some point in the future if all goes well there.
Yeah, well, that's super exciting. You'll have to keep us posted on, when, where, and we'll share it with our community. We'd love to see you come along to one of our events. Like we do Dungeons and Dragons, so we've got a role-playing tabletop game happening on Sunday.
Right.
And then we do a whole series of other sort of safe social spaces, like we did tennis a couple of weeks ago. We've got a music hang coming up. So we've had incredible people donate musical instruments and their time.
Oh, wonderful.
Do some stuff. So we have a lot of like really cool creative projects that, would be great to have someone like you reporting on, turning up to, doing some journalism around, because at the end of the day, it's really sharing the message, letting people know that we are creating those spaces and those resources, because up until this point in time, they haven't been there.
No.
And anyone and everyone who hears about the work that we do just go, oh, I wish this was around, when I was growing up, or when I was a teenager, or what have you, and Neuro Awesome will look to expand to making junior hangs. So for those K to 2 and going all the way up to the 18s, so that they've got those spaces as well where they can be safe, they can have those resources, and they can build their little community. Because I just feel so much for yourself and these other young adults who have had to navigate all of this and not be able to be themselves, and not be able to feel safe, and just constantly on this high alert for danger, because they were afraid to be themselves. So together we're making moves. The Assembly's doing an amazing job. You doing your work on the radio station is going to be incredible. We just want to bring you into the community and keep working with you, keep sharing the message, keep building out these resources and communities for more people like yourself on the spectrum. So let's do it.
Let's do it. I'm keen to be involved. I mean, I'm excitingly, I'm going on an overseas holiday in a couple of weeks.
Yes, you told me.
but once I'm back, and once I'm really getting into things, keen to be involved.
That sounds amazing. All right, well, let's wrap up, James. It has been such an incredible session with you. We look forward to having you on our team. We look forward to following along with your journey, seeing your holiday pics. I don't know, where are you off to?
Off to Europe. So
nice.
Yeah, so I've got family in the UK, so seeing them there, and also doing a bit of travel on the continent as well.
Oh, that's so nice, and perfect time of year for it. It's freezing here.
Yes.
I would much rather be in a European summer for sure. All right, well, you have a lovely time with your family. Say hi to your mom.
Will do.
Keep being amazing and working that confidence muscle. I'm just super proud of you. I can only imagine how proud you would be of yourself. and how just elated your mum would feel that you finally found where you feel happy and that place of belonging, because it's not an easy journey,
No.
but it takes a hero to face their fears and to look that dragon in the eye and just go, do you know what? You're not going to win today. I'm going to win. So you've done that, and you're an inspiration. So,
oh, thank
go
you.
James.
Well, thank you so much for having me today. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk about my experience, and if we can create a space and create conditions for change, then even if it's bit by bit, I think that's incredibly rewarding to be a part of. So thank you for having me.
It's been a pleasure, James. Thank you so much. You take care, and we'll
Thank you.
speak again very soon.
Yeah, speak again soon.